Okay, so hi everyone. Now we are back with the session, and what we did in the previous one was we studied about pods. Okay, so we did pods. Now we're going to talk about uh, another thing that is known as deployment. Okay, so what exactly a deployment is? I know it's quite amazing to study about pods, but in the real world, pods is not enough. Okay, so and that's not how applications run in real life. So now comes the question: how do applications run in real life? How do they run? Okay, so now we talk about what exactly a deployment is. Okay, so now if I say and if I talk about deployment and how deployments basically keep the application running and what exactly it is. Okay, so for that I'm just going to take some reference from the official website. So a deployment manages a set of pods to run an application workload, usually one that doesn't maintain state. Okay, so if I read it again, a deployment provides declarative updates for pods and replica sets. Okay, so now we have another term that is known as replica sets. Now, if we go back here and we talk about what exactly is a replica set, and I'll tell you. So, what happens if a pod crashes, for example? Okay, and why pods are not enough? And what happens if a pod is deleted? Okay, pods don't start if deleted. Pods are building blocks but not production tools. Okay, so now the question is, what exactly is a deployment? So a deployment manages pods for you. So a deployment is something that manages pods for you. Okay, so for example, if I just want to make something, I'll make like for example, this is a complete deployment in front of you. Okay, and then you have another thing. If we have like 3. Now what I'm going to talk about, pod is basically the smallest unit, as I mentioned before. Now collection of pods is basically a set. Okay, I'm just going to tell you what exactly is a replica set before I make it. So I'm going to open the link in a new tab. So as you can see, a replica set purpose is to maintain a stable set of replica pods. Collection of pods is a set. Okay, and when we talk about replica means copy. Okay, we all know that if you talk about Rolex or if you talk about big companies whose watches are available, there are several replicas available in the market. And also if we take that word here, and if a set contains a collection of pods, and if I talk about a replica set and if I reread it, a replica set's main purpose is to maintain a stable set of replica pods running at a given time. As such, it is often used to guarantee the availability of specified number of identical pods. Okay, so it ensures the specified availability of number of pods. So as you can see here on the screen, and I'll draw a pod, 2 pods here. Okay, and here we have like a replica set, another replica set, one more replica set. So we have 3 different replica sets in a specific deployment. Okay, so a deployment is a Kubernetes object that manages pods for us. So a deployment is a Kubernetes object that manages pods for us. So what you can see in the screen is a deployment contains different replica sets that has pods. So a deployment is a Kubernetes object that manages pods for us. Okay. So how does it work? What does it do? Okay. It creates pods, and then second restarts them if they crash, keeps the correct number, running. Okay. So the main point of deployment is to create pods, restart them if they crash, and keeps the correct number running. Okay. So this helps to update everything safely, and we don't manage pods. It is managed by deployment. So pods are managed by deployment. Okay. So now let's just create our first deployment. So when we talk about our first deployment, we will start with the command. Okay. As we always talk about, kubectl is our base command always. Okay. So kubectl, and then we start with create deployment, my first deployment, image is equals to nginx. So as you can see, now the deployment is created with the name of my first deployment. Okay. So Kubernetes creates deployment, and deployment creates pods. Okay. So now if we talk about kubectl get deployments, it's going to show all the deployments available. Okay. So as you can see, this is made 18 seconds ago. That is my first deployment. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to go and we're going to talk about kubectl get pods. So as you can see, my first deployment invalid image is error image pull. Yeah, it always has like this problem right now, but we're going to take care of that. So we did not create a pod directly, Kubernetes did it for us. So as you can see, this pod is created automatically. We didn't create it. Okay. So now if I delete this pod, for example, kubectl delete, and if I just copy this, so as you can see, it is deleted, and if I just go and do it again, so as you can see, the pod appears again. So my first deployment pod is right back again on the screen. Okay. So Kubernetes makes sure that the pod is recreated. Okay. Now what exactly it does is, so if you are updating something and if a pod gets deleted, deployment always helps and makes sure that the pod is right in there. So as you can see, even though after deleting the pod, it is still there because it was recreated. Okay. So now we talk about scaling the deployment. So if we type in here kubectl scale deployment, and then my first deployment dash dash replicas is equal to 3. So as you can see the deployment is scaled. So if I just go to kubectl get pods, now what do you see? After scaling, now we have three pods, okay? Because we just scaled it up. So deployment handles the update safely, and we just scaled it. So I'll just tell you what exactly did we do. Initially, my first deployment was having a single pod. After updating it, now we have three replica sets. Basically, replica we defined is equal to 3 in the command. Okay, so you can clearly see from on the screen that we have 3 of them. Okay, so even if I delete, like if I delete the same thing, and now I click on get pods, as you can see we still have all the 3 in front of us. That's what deployment is doing for us. Okay, so this is what it does. And now we basically talk about updating the application. So I'm going to tell you how basically it happens, and it's a very small step. So deployment handles the update completely on its own. Okay, so if I just go back to this and type in kubectl set image, and then given here deployment backslash my first deployment nginx is equal to nginx colon latest, and then press enter. So as you can see the image has been updated. So what exactly did we do right now? This made sure that Kubernetes updates pods gradually, and then there is no downtime. Okay, and we are going to dive deep into a little later. So now we can also delete the deployment. And how do we do that? Like the way we delete the pods. kubectl delete deployment, my first deployment. So as you can see now the deployment is deleted. So when the deployment is deleted, Kubernetes cleans up everything it created. So if I just type in kubectl get pods, there is no pod running at the moment with the name of my first deployment because we deleted the deployment. Okay, so what we just learned right now is very important in the Kubernetes. That is the most important thing, that is basically deployment. And this is how the real applications are run in Kubernetes. Okay, so in the next video, we'll make sure to make our application reachable outside the world using services. Okay, so what we learned from this is why pods are not enough, what a deployment is, how self-healing in action works, how scaling works, and how Kubernetes manages pods. So as we saw, and if I go above here, as you can see, we talked about a deployment manages pods for you, and this is how a deployment looks like. And this was all about this session. We'll get to know more about other things in the next one. Thank you so much.